One of the books I've read, it's a Korean light novel, I believe, called The Second Coming of Gluttony. It is a fantastic novel. Anyone who's into webtoons, there's a half decent manga adaptation inbound. I don't know if there's an anime adaptation inbound, but it's a Korean light novel, pretty dense, but there's some concepts in there that I really enjoy. So the main character has a particular ability called future vision. I'll come back to that in a second. I just want to set the precedent for that. One of the things that happens in the alternate world that he goes to is you have a character profile. A lot of Korean light novels talk about this idea of gamifying life, which is very cool. Everyone's always interested in it. It's a concept that's prominent in marketing today and a lot of other things. But it just makes life easy. You gamify it. So one of the things they talk about is how you have an attitude, you have a temperament, and you have a disposition, which is something that other books that I've read that are self-development based talk a lot about, where you have your attitude, which is kind of in the moment. If you practice an attitude and you exhibit that attitude for long enough, you are now getting into a temperament. So that is what can be considered a mood. You're in a mood because you're expressing a particular attitude over a period of time. That's when you get to a temperament. When you continue doing that long enough, you continue embodying that attitude over a long period of time, that temperament comes to inhabit you, which is where it becomes your disposition. And one of the things they talk about in the book is that your disposition is something that's really hard to change, but if you work at it slowly and you work on changing your temperament, which can change very easily, you can eventually use that to change your disposition, which is a crucial aspect, I think, in a lot of self-development, where you talk about the idea of just being aware in general of your attitude, which is where things like mindfulness and meditation can help. Being in the present moment, you can be aware of your attitude that you're exhibiting at a certain point in time. Then over time, when you start getting to becoming a temperament, you are embodying that temperament. You have certain physiological responses in your body that respond to the way that you're thinking. That's when you talk about how you're feeling. So that becomes a temperament or a mood that you exhibit over a period of time. You are embodying that attitude. Then eventually it comes to the point where it becomes your disposition. That attitude and mood has become ingrained in time so long that your body remembers it better than your mind necessarily, and it inhabits you. So now you have a disposition that represents the temperament you've had over a long time, which represents the various attitudes you've had over a long time. So there's this kind of process of being aware of something, then you embody that thing, then you inhabit that thing, which is prominent in a lot of self-development books. I'm reading Joe Dispenza's book right now, and he talks a lot about these things. And that's kind of the try version that I've brought it down to for my own personal understanding. Now, coming back to future vision, that was there early. One thing that I found super fascinating is the last, 3 levels of what he unlocks. And I'm not going to get too spoilery here. I'm just giving the names. But that said, read the book first, because there's some aspects, but one of his powers is called the choice of destiny, where he starts seeing things in blue, where at that point he can understand and see this is something that is going to change the course of my life, meaning the particular space or the dimension, I guess, that he is going to go to will change based on the current choice that he makes. And this is very similar to the principles that surround the throat chakra, which is also represented by the color blue in Sanskrit. Then you go into indigo, which is called fate pioneering, which has a lot to do with this idea of you are the master of your own fate, independent of time, and you are able to dispel the illusions of the outer world and make the inner world that you desire a reality, which is where you choose your own fate and you pioneer it in the illusion of the outer world and eventually make your internal environment greater than your external environment, which has a lot to do with overcoming time and this idea that is represented in a lot of mythology through the pineal gland, the Eye of Horus, and a lot of self-development books like what Joe Dispenza talks about. Then you get to the last level, which is called stellar evolution, which is this idea that you have the sun as a star, but then the moon still has light, and other planets from where we watch still have light. That's because they're reflecting the light of the sun. So one of the characters talks about this idea that if you bring that down to a human kind of perspective, you have kings and leaders, and these people are ones that shine light so bright that they bring other followers that believe in their world and make them also part of, I guess, their constellation. They end up attracting stars to them because they have evolved into a being that is a star, that emits light on your own, which is a lot, again, of what getting to the crown chakra and Sahasrara talks about in Sanskrit literature. And there's some other web novels that I'll start trying to connect this to. There's ones by a lovely set of authors called Xin Shang, I believe, or Xin Shang. The World After the Fall, which has, again, I'm going to go rant about these two, and another novel called Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, which is just beautiful. And I think a lot of these theological themes that are present in literature are starting to meld with scientific evidence, where we're getting empirical evidence to point towards these things. And I just find it very fascinating that these principles are also available in this kind of literature access. And I think that just makes it a lot easier for people to understand these ideas and kind of embody them, which is why a lot of people who read Eastern literature, whether it be fictional or even self-developmental, they're based in these principles that surround the nature of life and trying to understand why we participate in this game of life. And I don't know, I just wanted to rant about it, about how there's, in that future vision ability, there's those 3 levels that correspond with the colors and the ideas that surround the chakras as well. There isn't as much about the lower chakras, but there's some elements, but not deep enough for me to talk about it. But I've been reading those web novels when I was in college, and now that I'm reading the scientific literature to back some of those ideas up and getting more in touch with Hinduism and my own culture, it's just super fascinating how these pervade through all of it. And I don't know, I've come to a stage where now I think I've just got too much information in my brain and I just want to start ranting about it, regardless of whether it's cohesive or not. So I hope that was interesting to anyone who stuck around. And yeah, wow.